Once upon a time, in a bustling town of Enkay, there lived a woman named Abani. She was known for her beauty, wit, and kindness. Abani had a spirit as fierce as a lioness, yet her heart was tender, always quick to forgive even those who wronged her. She was the kind of person who would give away her last meal to someone in need, even if it meant going hungry herself. Her laughter, bright and melodious, often echoed through the narrow, dusty streets of Enkay, bringing joy to those who had it. But behind vibrant smile, Abani carried a heavy burden of her family's poverty. Abani's family lived in a crumbling mud house at the edge of the town, where the roof leaked whenever it rained and the walls seemed to shake with every gust of wind. Inside, the few pieces of furniture they owned were worn and patched up so many times that it was impossible to tell their original color. Her mother, Mama Oyini, was a washerwoman who scrambled clothes by the river until her hands were raw and cracked. Her father, Baba Ade, once a strong farmer, had injured his leg years ago and could only hobble around, relying on a walking stick. Despite his pain, he would carve small wooden toys to sell in the market, earning just enough to buy a loaf of bread or handful of yams. The family often went to bed hungry, their stomachs crawling in silence of the night. Abeni and her siblings would sometimes share a single meal of watery porridge, pretending they were full so their parents wouldn't feel guilt. On particularly bad days, Mama Ayini would try to make a meal from scraps she collected from the market trash pile. A bruised tomato here, a wilted leaf there, yet despite their struggles, Abeni's family was proud. They never begged, choosing instead to work hard and face their hardships with dignity. Abeni herself was resourceful. She had learned to sew using an old knit and scraps of fabric she collected. She made simple clothes, which she sold at the market for few coins. Her dream, however, went beyond mere survival. Abeni often stayed awake at night, staring at the stars through the holes in their roof, imagining a life where she didn't have to worry about her family's next meal. She dreamed of marrying a man who would lift her out of poverty, someone who would whisk her away to a life of comfort and adventure. Her neighbors, however, often mocked her dreams. Abeni, you are too proud, they would say. Who do you think you are? Wishing for a prince, disgrateful if a god had asked for your hand. But Abeni was not shaken. She believed in her worth and refused to settle for less. Despite her resilience, Abeni's situation wasn't without a scandal. The town's wealthy women often whispered behind her back. They envied her beauty and despised her confidence. Look at her, they would hiss, parading through the market as if she's the queen. She has no dowry, no land, nothing but pretty face. Would you want to marry someone like her? One particularly dramatic incident occurred during the annual market festival. Abeni had saved for months to buy a second-hand dress to wear. When she arrived at the festival, heads turned and people murmured in, "Ow! She looked like royalty despite her humble origin." This infuriated the town's wealthiest spinster, Madame Duro, who felt upstaged. Madame Duro publicly confronted Abeni, accusing her of trying to seduce the festival's most eligible bachelors. "You think you can fool everyone with your beauty?" Madame Duro spat. "But we all know you are just a poor girl pretending to be something you are not." Abeni stood tall, her voice steady as she replied, "I may be poor, Madame Duro, but I have something your money can't buy. Hope. And with hope, I can become anything I dream of." Her words left the crowd speechless, and from that day, Abeni's reputation as a woman of courage and conviction grew. But no amount of courage could shield her from the weight of her family's struggle. One fateful day, the landlord came to their house, demanding rent they couldn't pay. He threatened to throw them out if they didn't leave by the end of the week. Abeni watched her mother sob and her father's shoulders slump in defeat. It was then she vowed to change their lives, no matter what it took. She didn't know how or win, but deep in her heart, she felt that her moment of destiny was near. In the same town, there was a beggar named Kamau. He was tall, strong, but his clothes were always torn and dirty. His face, though weathered by the sun, carried quiet dignity, and his eyes held a depth that hinted at his hidden store. Kamau would sit by the market gates every day with a small tin cup begging for coin. Despite his circumstances, he was always polite. He would greet everyone who passed by with a soft good morning or God bless you, even when they ignored him. Kamau had a habit of sharing whatever little he received. If someone gave him bread, he would break it in half and share it with another beggar. If he found a coin, he would use it to buy water for the children playing in the dusty streets. But his kindness was rarely noticed, and his presence was a source of irritation for many. In the towns, people mocked him endlessly. Children threw pedals at him and laughed, calling him Kamau the useless. One boy once snatched his tin cup and ran off, spilling the few coins Kamau had collected for the day. The market women were even more cruel. "Get away, you filthy beggar," they would yell. "You are scaring away my customer." One woman, in a fit of anger, poured a bucket of dirty water on him, shouting, "Maybe this will wash off your uselessness." Kamau simply wiped his face and moved to another spot, his dignity unshaken. There were even more scandalous instances. One day, a merchant accused Kamau of stealing a loaf of bread. Though Kamau insisted he was innocent, the merchant grabbed him by the collar and dragged him through the market, shouting, "This thief needs to be taught a lesson." A crowd gathered, jeering and throwing whatever they could find at Kamau. Finally, an elderly woman stepped forward and admitted she had given the bread to Kamau. And the merchant, embarrassed, let him go but didn't apologize. Kamau, instead of showing anger, simply thanked the elderly woman and walked away. Rumors began to spread about Kamau's past. Some said he was a criminal who had fled his village. Others claimed he was cursed and that anyone who showed him kindness would suffer misfortune. These rumors made the townspeople to even treat him worse. If he tried to sit under a tree for shade, someone would chase him away with us. If he found a corner to sleep in at night, they would pour cold water on him to force him to eat. Despite it all, Kamau never complained. He spent his days helping other beggars and his nights gazing at stars lost in thoughts. Little did the townspeople know Kamau carried a secret, one that would soon turn their scorn into shock and their jeers into awe. One day, Abeni was walking through the market when she saw Kamau. He was sitting under a tree, his head low. The children were teasing him again, singing, "Kamau has no house, Kamau has no food, Kamau will beg until he dies." A group of boys began circling him, clapping and stomping their feet as they chanted the cruel rhythms. One boy threw a half-eaten fruit at Kamau, hitting him squarely on the shoulder. Another poured out the water from Kamau's tin cup, laughing as the small coins shattered on the ground. The market women, instead of stopping the children, egged them on. "Maybe if you chase him away, he will finally leave this town," one shouted. Another sneered, "He's just a nuisance. No one will miss him." Kamau sat still, his head bowed, enduring the humiliation in silence. Abeni felt a pang in his heart. She couldn't stand by and watch any longer. She walked over to the group, her steps firm and her gaze fierce. "Stop it," she shouted. The children froze by her commanding tone. "How dare you treat another human being like this? Where is your compassion?" The boys shuffled their feet, mumbling half-hearted excuses before running off. The market women turned their attention to Abeni, their faces twisting in disapproval. "Why are you defending him?" one of them scoffed. "He's just a beggar. You should be ashamed associating with someone like him." But Abeni ignored their taunt. She knelt down beside Kamau and placed a loaf of bread on his tin cup. "Here," she said gently. "You shouldn't have to endure." Kamau looked up, his eyes filled with gratitude and a hint of surprise. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice housed with emotion. As Abeni stood, she noticed the crowd watching her with a mixture of shock and disdain. "Mock me if you want," she said boldly, addressing the onlookers, "but kindness costs nothing, and I refuse to let cruel define this town." Her words hung in the air, silencing the murmurs. From that day, Abeni's interactions with Kamau became a source of gossip and scandal in Iketa. The market women whispered about her soft spot for the beggar, while others speculated that she had lost her mind. "Why is she wasting her time with the useless man?" they whispered. "She will never find a husband if she keeps hanging out around beggars." But Abeni didn't care. She saw something in Kamau that others couldn't. He was kind, humble, intelligent, and had quick strength and a depth that intrigued her. Little did she know, her small act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. One evening, as they sat by the river with the moon casting a silver glow on the water and the crickets singing in the background, Kamau finally opened up about his mysterious past. His voice was steady but tinged with pain, and his gaze seemed to pierce through the night as he spoke. "I wasn't always a beggar," he began, his words heavy with the weight of memory. "I come from a faraway kingdom called Indundu. My father is the king, a wise and powerful man who ruled with justice and compassion. Growing up, I was surrounded by wealth and luxury beyond imagination. Golden palaces, endless feasts, servants who catered to my every whim. But my life wasn't as perfect as it seemed." Kamau's voice faltered, and Abani reached out to touch his hand, silently urging him to continue. He drew a deep breath. "I was the crown prince, the heir to the throne. My father's kingdom was a vast and prosperous, as many envied us. Among them was my uncle, my father's youngest brother, a man consumed by greed and ambition. He wanted the throne for himself and would not stop at nothing to get it." Kamau's face darkened as he recounted the betrayal that changed his life. "My brother conspired with the traitors within the palace. That is, my brother conspired with my uncle. One night as the kingdom slept, he staged a coup. The gods I trusted turned against me. I was dragged from my chambers and thrown into the dungeons. My own brother declared me as a traitor, accusing me of plotting to overthrow our father. My father, believing the lies, banished me from the kingdom. He told me never to return." Abeni gasped, her heart breaking for Kamau. "That must have been terrible," she whispered. Kamau nodded, his eyes clouded with sorrow. "I was exiled with nothing but the clothes on my back. I wandered from village to village, and turned into a nobody, learning the harsh realities of the life outside the palace walls. At first I was angry and bitter, but over time I began to see the world differently. I realized that my privilege had blinded me to the struggle of ordinary people. I decided to live among them, understand their pain and joys, their hopes and fear." Abani listened intently, her admiration of Kamau growing with every word. "But why didn't you try to clear your name, to reclaim your throne?" she asked. Kamau's expression hardened. "Because the betrayal cut too deep. My own blood turned against me. Even if I could prove my innocence, the scars of that night would remain. I needed time to heal, rediscover who I am beyond the title of prince." He paused, his voice softening. "And then I met you. You reminded me of something I had forgotten, the power of kindness, the beauty of love. You saw me more than a beggar. You gave me hope." Abeni felt tears prick her eyes. She had always known there was something special about Kamau, but hearing his story made her see him in a new light. When Kamau asked her to marry him that evening, she didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said, her voice steady with conviction. "I will marry." The news spread like wildfire through Iketa. The townspeople were outraged. "How can she marry a beggar?" they shouted in disbelief. "She's throwing her life away. He has nothing to offer her." The market women who had always envied Abeni's beauty were especially vocal. "She's a fool," they sneered, "marrying a man who can't even feed himself." What a disgrace. As Benny's friends turned their backs on her, refusing to speak to her, "You are ruining your life," they told her. "You could have married someone wealthier, someone who could take care of you. Why choose a beggar?" Her family was no less harsh. Her mother wept and begged her to reconsider. "Benny, think of us," Mama Yini pleaded. "We are already struggling. How will you survive with a man who has not?" Her father, usually quiet, spoke with uncharacteristic anger. "You are bringing shame to this family. No man of worth will ever look at your sisters if you go through with this." But Abeli was firm. "I love Kamau," she told them. "He may not have the riches, but he has a heart of gold. I would rather marry a man of integrity than a man with wealth, but no soul." The townspeople's hostility escalated. On the day of the wedding, they lined the streets, jeering and throwing rotten fruits at the couple. As they walked to the small chapel on the hill, "A prince of beggars," someone shouted mockingly. "Enjoy your life of misery, Abeni," another taunted. But Abeni and Kamau held their hands high, their love shielding from the cruel people around them. As they exchanged their vows, the jeers faded into the background, replaced by the sound of their hearts beating as one. Little did the townspeople know, this union was the beginning of a story that would shake the foundations of Ikata and leave them questioning everything they thought they knew about Kamau and Abeni. After the wedding, Abeni and Kamau moved into a tiny run-down hut on the edge of the town. The walls were cracked, the roof leaked when it rained, and the cold winds peered through every night. Life was hard. Abeni worked tirelessly at the market, selling fruits and vegetables, while Kamau continued to beg for coins. They lived day by day, scrapping together with the little they had to survive. Yet despite their struggles, Abeni never wavered in her love for Kamau. The townspeople, however, were relentlessly in their cruelty. Every time Abeni walked through the market, the women would sneer at her. "How is your prince charming?" they mocked. "Has he built you a palace yet? Or is he still building castles in the air?" The men laughed openly, shouting, "Abeni, don't forget to polish your beggar's throne tonight." Abeni held her head high, refusing to let their words break her. "He's worth more than any palace," she would reply with a calm smile. Her dignity only fueled their scorn. They called her delusional, fool blinded by love. "She will learn the hard way," they whispered among themselves, convinced that Abeni's choice would end in ruin. Months passed by, and their situation didn't improve. Kamau often blamed himself. "I have brought you nothing but hardship," he said one night as they sat outside their hut, watching the stars. But Abeni shook her head. "You have brought me love, Kamau. That's more than enough." Her unwavering faith in him was both a comfort and a burden. Kamau knew he had to do something to change their circumstances, but he also knew it wasn't yet time to reveal his true identity. Then, one fateful day, the quiet rhythm of their lives was shattered. A group of strangers arrived in Ikata, their presence impossible to ignore. They were dressed in fine robes of silk and velvet, their horses adorned with gold and silver ornaments that gleamed in the sun. The leader of the group was a regal-looking man with sharp features and a commanding presence. The townspeople gathered around, murmuring in awe and curiosity. The leader held up a beautiful painted portrait and addressed the crowd. "Have you seen this man?" he asked in a voice that broke no arch. The townspeople craned their necks to get a better look. While they saw the portrait, a collective gasp was heard throughout the crowd. It was Kamau. But in the painting, he wasn't a beggar. They knew. He was dressed in prince-like attire, his head held high, excluding in the air of authority and grace. "That's Kamau the beggar," someone exclaimed, disbelief coloring their voices. "Kamau, a prince?" imposed. A crowd erupted in a fury of shocked whispers, their mocking tone replaced by a mixture of astonishment and confusion. The leader's face lit up with a mixture of relief and urgency. "Where is he?" he demanded. demand. The townspeople, eager to witness what would happen next, quickly led the strangers to Kamau and Abeni's hut. As Kamau saw the group approaching, his expression softened and a small, knowing smile played on his lips. The leader dismounted his horse and ran toward Kamau, falling to his knees before him. "My brother," Kamau said, his voice calm but lost with emotion. "It has been a long time." The leader's voice cracked with emotion. "Forgive me, Kamau. I was wrong to betray you. I allowed greed and jealousy to cloud my judgment. Father is ill and he has been searching for you. You must come home. The kingdom needs you." Beni watched the scene unfold, her mind spinning. She had always believed in Kamau, but even she hadn't imagined that her husband was a prince. The townspeople who had followed to witness the spectacle stood in stunned silence. Their mocking jeers had turned into harsh head whispers of "ow" and disbelief. Kamau's face hardened as he looked at his brother. "You betrayed me," he said quietly, the pain of the past evident in his voice. "You stole my throne and turned our father against me. Why should I trust you now?" The leader's eyes filled with tears. "I deserve your anger, Kamau, but I have come to make things right. The kingdom isn't good without you. The people are suffering. Father's last wish is to see you return. Please, for the sake of our family and our people, come back." Kamau was silent for a long moment. Beni, sensing his inner turmoil, placed a hand on his arm. "Kamau," she said softly, "whatever you choose, I'm with you." Her words seemed to give him strength. He turned to his brother and nodded. "I will return, but not for the throne or the riches. I'll return to make sure our people are cared." The leader's face broke into a grateful smile. "Thank you, Kamau. You will see that things have changed. The kingdom needs you now more than ever." As Kamau and Abeni prepared to leave, the townspeople stood by, watching with a mixture of awe and regret. The townspeople were stunned. The man they had mocked and called useless was a prince. The market women who had chased him away now begged for his forgiveness. "Kamau, please don't forget us," they pleaded. "We always knew you were special." The same people who had mocked and scorned Kamau now bowed their heads in respect. "Prince Kamau," they murmured, the words tasting foreign on their tongues. For Abeni, it was a vindication of her unwavering faith in a man she loved, and for Kamau, it was a beginning of a new chapter, one that would test his strength, his forgiveness, and his love for the woman who had stood by him through it all. Kamau forgave them, but he did not forget how cruel they are. He and Abeni returned to his kingdom, where the news of his return spread like wildfire. The streets of Indundu were lined with people, cheering and waving banners bearing the royal crest. Kamau's father, fragile but overjoyed, waited on the palace steps, tears streaming down the old king's face as he embraced his son. "You have returned," he said, his voice trembling. "I have prayed for this day." Abeni stood beside Kamau, out by the grand reveal of the palace. It was nothing like the tiny hut they had shared in Ikita. The walls were adorned with gold and intricate carvings. The walls gleamed with polished marble, and the air smelled of fresh flowers. Yes, despite the unpleasant, Abeni felt at home only because Kamau was by her side. Kamau was crowned king in a ceremony that lasted for days. Abeni, now queen, was adorned with the finest clothing and jewelry. She wore a crown of gold encrusted with diamond, and her beauty left the court speechless. But Abeni's heart remained humble. She remembered the mocking voices in Ikita, the coordinates in their hands, the days when they barely had enough to eat. She vowed to use her new position to help those in need. The people of Indundu quickly grew to love their new king and queen. Kamau ruled with wisdom and justice, drawing from the lessons he had learned during the time in exile. Abeni, helping the poor, ensuring that no one in the kingdom would suffer as they once had. Together they transformed Indundu into a land of prosperity and compassion. Back in Ekenta, the townspeople couldn't stop talking about Abeni. "She saw what we couldn't," they said, marveling at the turn of events. "She married a beggar and became a queen." Their regret was a lot. The market women who had mocked her now told their children stories of abundance, kindness, and foresight. The men who had laughed at Kamau's rubbed clothes now envied his strength and resilience. Even Abeni's family, who had once begged her to leave Kamau, held their heads high with pride, though they couldn't shake their guilt for doubting her. One day, Abeni decided to visit Ikita. She came into the town on a golden carriage, her royal guards flanking her. Townspeople gathered to greet her, their faces a mixture of awe and shame. Abeni stepped out, her presence commanding yet warm. She addressed the crowd, her voice steady and clear. I have returned, not to boast, but to remind you of the value of kindness and humility. Kamau and I were mocked and scorned, but we held on to our love and faith in each other. I hope you will remember this. True worth isn't in riches or appearance, but in the heart. Hazard struck a chord, and many wept openly. Among them were the market people who had thrown rotten fruit at her, the children who had teased Kamau, and even her childhood friends who had abandoned her. One by one, they came forward to apologize. "You are wrong," they said. "You saw what we couldn't. You taught us a lesson we will never forget." Abeni accepted their apologies with grace, but didn't let them off too easily. "Words are not enough," she said. "If you truly wish to change, show it through your action. Treat everyone with respect, regardless of their situation in life." Meanwhile, back to Indundu, Kamau's brother, who had begged for forgiveness, was given a chance of redeeming himself. Kamau appointed him as an advisor, but not without a warning. "Betray me again, and there will be no second chance," Kamau said firmly. His brother, humbled and grateful, pledged his loyalty and worked tirelessly to prove himself. As the years passed, Kamau and Abeni's love only grew strong. They faced challenges from political unrest to natural disasters, but they always stood together. Their story became a legend, a tale of resilience, love, and redemption. The people of Indundu and Ikita alike recounted it to their children, ensuring that the lessons of the beggar prince and his queen would never be forgotten. And so, Kamau and Abeni ruled their kingdom with wisdom and kindness, providing that true worth isn't into riches, but in the heart. The people of Ikita learned a valuable lesson: never judge someone by their appearance, for you never know the treasure they may hold within. And that, dear reader, is the story of the beggar prince and his queen. So if you want to know why you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, watch my previous video.